to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful September 23rd, 2019. Guando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, I guess fall is falling upon us, but, I woke up this morning to some appalling news on the television where I was looking at last week that 2 6-year-old children, African-American children down in Florida, were arrested in school for having temper tantrums. You think about that, how difficult it is for African-Americans in the United States as we think about social injustice and social inequality.
Wow.
That a 6-year-old, and I believe every parent has had a 6-year-old and knows at times that they will have disgruntled moments.
Oh, yeah.
But for a police officer to go into a school where you send your child to be safe and to learn,
yeah,
and the child is not harming anybody else other than throwing a temper tantrum in the office,
wow,
and a police officer comes in and handcuffs a 6-year-old male and female African-American student and arrest them and take them to jail, Charlton.
That's a horrible, and we know we're going to talk about it. We'll always shout it out. And I do want to say today's segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. I do want to say it's also the first day of autumn. We're actually in fall. Summer's over. But I want to go back to that story of that child. We've talked about many times on Big C Sports, and this is according to the Kerner Commission over 50 years ago, in recent studies, that African American children are 10 times more likely to be falsely accused of a crime by mainstream, that means white people, and 7 times out of 10 more likely to be arrested on falsely made accusations. Now, I don't know the answer to how you deal with that. Did you say a 6-year-old child, Big C, or 16?
6-year-old child, 6 years old.
6-year-old
6 years
child.
old.
Wow.
What can a 6-year-old do that's so heinous just by having a temper tantrum in school that warrants a police officer to come in and arrest? Now, this police officer had been disciplined several years ago for tasing a suspect 5 times while this suspect was handcuffed, Charlton, and under arrest.
Yeah.
So he had been disciplined and put on leave behind that. So he has a pattern against African Americans.
Yeah.
And this is the reason why we have social injustice in America, because those that are in power, they only see color, Charlton, when they're going out doing their deeds. And so when you put criminals with a badge on their chest and a gun on their hip, allowing them to do whatever they decide to society. Now, any parent who has had a 6-year-old, think about how you would feel with your 6-year-old being handcuffed at school, not banishing a weapon, not having in drugs, just having a temper tantrum that all 6-year-olds have had at home.
Yeah.
These 6-year-olds did it at school, and a police officer came and put handcuffs on them and took them to jail.
It's amazing, and I know as much as we say, man, who won the game, Big C? Did you see that game? We do live in 2 different realities at times, and the only way we fix it is by talking about it. But I challenge any white parent in the universe to say that you're okay with that happening. And it doesn't even matter the color of the officer, but for the most part, they don't do this to white Americans. I got a story I just got to share because it's real, and sometimes you think, man, people just want to know who won a game, but I don't like dumb people. So if that's all they care about, I don't care what they think about. But I know there's too many times when we're told as African Americans, well, he must have been doing something wrong. Why else would they arrest him? It doesn't make any sense. They wouldn't just show up and grab him with impunity, Big C. They have to have some reason. Big C, there's no reason. But there is a reason. Because hatred and racism are taught in the home. It's not because they're mentally ill cops, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is a cop, Charlton, that never should have had a badge at any point. When he was disciplined several years ago for tasing a man that was under arrest and handcuffed, this man happened to be African American also.
Yeah.
And then they allow him back out to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But as a parent, and you know, I don't have any 6-year-old children anymore, but I've had 6-year-old children. And any parent who's had a 6-year-old children know that they become disgruntled and have temper tantrums at times. We've all seen that, whether we're at a grocery store, department store, at a movie theater, even at sporting events, Charlton. When a 6-year-old doesn't get their way, 90% of the time they're going to go off and have a little temper tantrum.
Yeah.
But for a police officer to feel that it's justified, and the thing about it, Charlton, a police officer for any child under the age of 12 in the state of Florida, they have to call in and get the authority from the watch commander, Charlton, to be able to do this act. This officer did not do that. He went beyond the protocol of what's allowed as far as in interacting with a minor child under the age of 12. But to put handcuffs on a child at the age of 6, think about the mental detriment that you bring to this child. That all of a sudden you've set a standard for this child that they're not valued, that they're not appreciated in society. Now anybody can say, well, he overstepped the lines, but you have to ask yourself, if that child was white, how would society feel about it?
Well, I want to make sure, because we all can hear stories, but when it's personal, when you're the one that steps on the nail, it becomes painful. I remember when my daughter, who's an adult now, was about 6 years old, I took her to a football game. She must have been less than 6 because I had her on the back of my head. I had her up on my shoulders walking across the stadium, the grass, as 1,000 other people were doing the same thing. Just walking out onto the field. There were about 1,000 people walking out onto the field. And I remember this white officer made a beeline toward me and said, "Get off the field." And I didn't know he was talking to me at first. I said, "Excuse me." He said, "Get off the field. You heard what I said." And I said, "Well, there's 1,000 people out here." He said, "But I'm talking to you." I said, "Let me talk to your sergeant." And he turned bright red, and other white people looked at him, and he said nothing. And I kept walking. And because had I been alone, Big C, the story probably would have been different. But I did file a police report with the police department. Nothing happened, but I did file a report. And it's a shame, because to hear you say a 6-year-old, that's about the age my daughter was when we were chastised by a white police officer in front of 1,000 people on the stadium field. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's a very egregious act, and I mean, there's no reason to keep this man employed. I mean, we see heinous acts by police officers against minorities all the time, Charlton, but this is a new low.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen them kill people on television and everything else. We've seen them beat people on television. We've seen them tase people.
Yeah.
But to go into a school, Charlton, this child was not committing a crime.
No.
You can go to any school in America, and there's always kids in detention for doing various acts against other kids. There was an incident, I believe it was last week, Charlton, or the week before, where down in Florida, Lakeland, Florida, same place where they had the school shooting last year, where these kids beat up another kid, and it was videotaped. It was videotaped, Charlton. They beat up this 12-year-old boy at school in junior high. The kid's got 14-day suspension.
Wow.
14-day suspension for brutally beating up this other 12-year-old boy in the bathroom, and other kids videotaped it.
Yeah.
And yet you got a 6-year-old that didn't touch anybody holding a temper tantrum, and you put handcuffs on him.
Well, it breaks my heart, but as you know, Big C, it's only, like we say, the land of the free and the home of the brave. You got to be brave, hold your head up, and file a police report if you can. Get an attorney, because we got to stop all the bigotry from happening. And if you sit by and watch it happen, you're tacitly consenting to it. I do want to give out a national suicide hotline, because it goes to anybody who has any type of trouble, Big C. It's amazing that those things still happen to this day. But you can call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 and get help. And I do believe, I know I read a lot about Dr. Cornel West, and just, a lot of things that we go through, oftentimes we're told, be tough. You shouldn't have to be tough. Pick up the phone, and you can also call 911 when police brutality is happening, because dispatch can hear that. They also have internal affairs that will look at that, and we still hope that that's decent, even though we know a lot of people have unclean hands. So, Big C, I love the fact that we give out that number, but in the case of military veterans, we do that. but also for any civilian, like the 6-year-old child and the parents. Why is this number so important to you, Big C? Your thoughts?
This number, Charlton, is a humanitarian effort. It is what we do on a daily basis. Just like the 6-year-old being arrested in Florida for just having a temper tantrum. Just like the 12-year-old last week, Charlton, week and a half ago, that was pummeled and beat unconscious at school from bullying, Charlton, and no one intervened. They let it happen and they videotaped it. We have people in America of all ages going through crisis. And this National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is there to intervene in situations where people think that they have no hope, no place to turn, no one to talk to. There are people there to talk to you, Charlton, that are unjudgmental. They just want to hear your story. They want to be a shoulder for you to lean on. And this National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is a lifesaver. It was put out there to save lives in America. Because of the veterans and the adolescents that we're losing every day to this horrific suicide rate in America, and we can't seem to stem the tide. We spend so much time in America, Charlton, talking about things that are insignificant other than the value of American citizens. And that's what this National Suicide Hotline Prevention number is for.
Well, I love mentioning that because sports will bring people together, and oftentimes a sports audience, things will resonate longer, Big C, than if you don't have that. I want to get into what happened in college football, and then we got some NFL football to talk about. We also have some baseball to talk about. I want to say today's show is sponsored by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the growth that we're having with our sponsors. I want to get right into some college football. It goes back to Friday night, Big C. I know we had Friday night lights for high school football, but USC, I guess they shocked not too many people that have lived past 1916. They knocked off Utah by the score of 30-23 at the Coliseum Friday night. And Clay Helton had a lot of pressure taken off of his shoulders, even though they have to head to Washington. How big was that win? They had their second-team quarterback knocked out, Big C, and then they bring in a new guy that hadn't played. But he said he was ready, and he practiced as if he was the starter, and he had a big game against Utah, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the impact of that game, Charlton, that game all but knocked the Pac-12 out of the playoff championship race for college football, Charlton, but it was a huge victory for USC. This was a game where you looked at athletes playing against athletes. USC got back to what they used to do years ago. They recruit some of the top athletes on the West Coast and even around the country. And they said, what we're going to do is put our best players out there and just do what they do best. USC threw the ball deep, which they were synonymous for over a decade, Charlton, just throwing the ball deep. And that opened up everything. You got these big 6'5" receivers on the outside. You just throw the ball to them and let them go up against defensive backs. They got physical on the offensive and defensive line. Utah State came in, I guess, living on their paper and, living on all the print that had been printing about them. They're the top team in the Pac-12.
Utah,
ranked number 10 in the country. USC came out to play with an attitude. They lost Slovis the second play of the game. They brought in their third-string quarterback, Charlton. Looked like he'd been there all year long. As USC has gone, I wonder what Clay Helton saw in J.T. Daniels, the quarterback, with these second and third string quarterbacks playing so prominently in the past couple of games.
They're all like mirror images of each other, so that's a big win for the Trojans. I also owe you and I got a bet to settle, Big C, because I remember I told you them fighting words. You said that the Pac-12 was going to learn what physical football is all about when Cal Berkeley went down to Ole Miss and knocked them off. I know they've knocked them off by 8 points, but it could have been more than that. Ole Miss scored with about another 2 minutes left in the game. But Cal went into the SEC and beat an SEC team at home. But even more surprising was San Jose State went into Arkansas and knocked off Arkansas. And I think that's the first time in about 24 years they've beaten a Power 5 team on the road. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the San Jose State victory, Charlton, that shocked everybody, even San Jose State, to go down into the SEC. And I think San Jose State is in the Mountain West Conference.
Mountain West.
And they went back there and throttled Arkansas in Fayetteville, which shocked everybody across the country. So when you see a program that has reached the lows, you got to look at Arkansas. The Mississippi Cal game, Charlton, Cal right now is the top team in the Pac-12. When you think about it, they're 4-0. They've won their last 5 regular season games.
Yeah.
And when you look at their secondary, they may have one of the top 3 secondaries in the entire nation.
Yeah,
they held Mississippi in check. And when you think about it, Cal has not allowed 21 points in their last 5 games, Charlton.
Yeah.
All of their last 5 games, their defense have held opponents under 21 points.
Yeah, they look pretty sound when it came to that. So it's all fair and love and war, but I want to get into some other things too. And I know I have some big games to talk about, but when I saw that UCLA, I know Chip Kelly was under a lot of pressure, and you always are, 50 points in 19 minutes. That I saw the final score, 67-63. I thought John Wooden had rebirthed himself back into football. Big, so your thoughts?
Well, you know, they could have competed against the basketball team. When you look at what UCLA did in this game, even though Washington shot themselves in the foot on several occasions, you talk about an electrifying college football game.
Yeah.
Washington up by 35 points. Charlton give up the lead to UCLA.
Yep.
They came back with this miraculous win, 67-63. Over the Washington State Cougars up in Pullman, Charlton, of all places. So, you know, they went on the road. They came up with a game, and one of the most electrifying games that you're ever going to see over 60 minutes in college football. Ironically, it was the second highest regular, game in 60 minutes, Charlton, that's been scored in the playoff era in college football.
Yep.
You think about the 2 quarterbacks. These teams combined for over 1,300 yards of offense. The quarterbacks between them combined for almost 1,100 yards passing.
Yep.
When you think about Gordon at Washington State, he was 2 off the NCAA record, throwing 9 touchdowns in the game, but 2 interceptions, which hurt his team in the end.
Yeah.
UCLA's young quarterback, Charlton, threw for over 500 yards, the greatest game he's ever played, college or high school.
Yeah.
So as you think about this, did he get the monkey off of Chip Kelly's back? Maybe. But he's going to have another victory or 2 in the next couple of games, Charlton, to slow down the alumni there.
Yeah. Darian Gordon, 25 of 38, 507 yards, 5 TDs, 1 pick. And Anthony Gordon, 41 of 61, 570 yards, 9 touchdowns. I mean, that's amazing, Big C, and a couple of interceptions. Now, we go down south. Trevor Lawrence threw 2 first-half touchdown passes. Number 1, Clemson won its 19th straight game with an overwhelming 52-10 victory over. Does Charlotte play football, Biscuit? Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, I thought they were playing the Panthers stuff for a minute when you think about they come out of Charlotte. But, Clemson right now seems to have a clear path to the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence still hasn't lived up to the laurels that everybody gave him during the preseason, being the chosen one, Charlton, when you just talked about the numbers that Gordon put up out there at Washington State. But that Clemson team, Charlton, is led by their defense.
Yeah.
That defense was a stalwart last year when they won a national championship, and it hasn't fallen off at all this year in 2019.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then 2 of those 5 touchdown passes, 293 yards in just under 3 quarters. Number 2, Alabama, roll tide 49-7 over Southern Mississippi. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Tua in Alabama, Charlton, all they do is roll. I mean, roll tide, roll Tua. He's thrown 9 touchdown passes in his last 2 games. And you think about only 3 quarters of work. This Alabama team is just now getting started.
Nah, they're pretty dominant. Jake Fromm threw a 15-yard touchdown pass to Lawrence Cage early in the 4th quarter. And number 3, Georgia, they got a tougher fight than many people expected. They held off number 7, Notre Dame, by the score of 23-17. What I think Notre Dame proved is they still lack the speed. Now, I know they played a good game, but they also had the score to even bring it closer. I mean, they were down by double digits until they got that last, score. But there's still the speed factor. Now, if you're Notre Dame, and I know they talk about academics, etc., but you learn how to get faster the same way you learn how to get bigger and stronger. Why do you notice there's still a speed factor? And Notre Dame has their own TV network, so everybody knows that they have positions open. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, speed you can't teach, Charlton. When you talk about the SEC and the dominance of that conference, and you look at speed across the board, in 6 teams in the SEC, it's just everybody who has it. When you talk about Notre Dame, you talk about an academic institution just like you talk about Stanford on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Notre Dame has fared much better than Stanford has in the past several years, Charlton, as far as athletics there in football. But it just showed where the SEC is and why Georgia's ranked number 3 in the country.
Yeah, well, another great quarterback. And no one really talked about him too much last year, but Joe Burrow tossed 4 of his school's 6 record touchdown passes to Jamar Chase and threw for 398 yards as he led number 4 LSU to 66-38 win over Vanderbilt. And you look at schools like UCLA scored 67, 1 point more than LSU, but their teams are much different. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about what Joe Burrow is doing now, this guy couldn't even win the starting job at Ohio State. He transferred to LSU, and he's given that program something that they haven't had in decades, a great quarterback, Charlton. He's thrown 15 touchdown passes in the last 3 games that he has played. That defense has always been tremendous at LSU.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow has lifted this team to new heights. It's going to be a great challenge in the SEC West between Alabama and LSU this year.
Yeah, well, this is what I think is at least the top 2 teams in the country, and everybody has their opinion. When I go up north, they say, what's a Buckeye? A Buckeye is a nut. And I think people are nuts to say that Michigan could compete with this team. Ohio State, Justin Fields, Big C, he threw 4 touchdowns and rushed for 2 more scorers in the second quarter as number 6 Ohio State cruised to a 76-5 win over Miami of Ohio. They even outscored UCLA 67 points. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they might even hang that many points on UCLA when you think about how dominant that Ohio State is right now.
Yeah.
They're under first-year coach Ryan Day.
Yep.
First-year quarterback Justin Fields.
Yeah.
This team has a wealth of talent offensively and defensively. They've always dominated the state getting the talent. So we always look at the offense of Ohio State, but look at what their defense did. Their defense held Miami of Ohio to a field goal. They got a safety in the game also.
Yeah.
But the defense only gave up a field goal against Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, and when the kids say safety, they mean you stuck it up. So Miami of Ohio, they got the money, Big C, but they also took some beat down with that too. I think Ohio State, it's hard to find a team, I don't care how good you are, that can score 70 points. Even in basketball, they did it in football. Kyle Trask, Big C, threw for 293 yards, 3 touchdowns, in his first start in nearly 7 years as number 7 Florida beat slumping Tennessee by the score of 34-3. And this shows you when Tennessee is a decent team, you know, they were pushed in a couple of their losses, Big C, but they had no answers for Florida, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Trask, this kid backed up D'Eriq King when they were in high school down in Texas. D'Eriq King is a quarterback down at the University of Houston who has broke Tim Tebow's NCAA record as far as passing and rushing for touchdowns in consecutive games. But when you think about Trask, he has not started a game since he was a freshman in high school. Freshman. We're talking a long, long time ago. Now he's at the University of Florida, and he stepped in when Felipe Franks broke his ankle, and they have not missed a stride. They may be a better team now with Felipe Franks unfortunately getting hurt with Trask at quarterback, because this is a guy who's going to run the scheme that Dan Mullen gives him. He makes Florida a serious threat in the East, in the SEC, against Georgia.
Yeah, they have so much talent down there, Big C, and it's just amazing. If you were to take the top 5 SEC teams and you put them in any conference in America, I think they'd compete for at least the top 2 spots, Big C. But this is another guy that has been under the radar just because he's so far up north. But I think he's the best running back in the country. And anybody can say it. It's like saying who has the best pancake batter in the country. But Jonathan Taylor ran for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you look at Jake Cohn added a career-high 2 rushing touchdowns. Number 13, Wisconsin, they made it look easy. It was a 35-14 beatdown over number 11, Michigan. At one point, it was 35-0, and they called off the Dogs. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it was easy, Charlton. When you talk about Jonathan Taylor, he only needed 23 carries to get to 203 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground.
Yeah.
This is a guy that did not play the complete game. If he had played the entire game against Michigan, he would have had 300 yards on the ground.
Yep.
But there's no answer for where Michigan is. You talked about the lack of speed at Notre Dame. The lack of speed is also there at Michigan. I think this is a demoralized program right now at Michigan because they had so much media hype about where they should be now under Jim Harbaugh. And after 5 years, Charlton, they have not made any inroads as far as the hunt for the national championship or even the Big Ten title.
Yeah, and I think Harbaugh, at some point in time, You look at what he does academically. I don't know what his graduation rate is, if it's any better than some of the teams ranked in the top 5. But I know when it comes to winning, I know people just care, do you win? Not if your kids graduate. So I don't feel for Harbaugh. He's in a good spot in life, but you can't. For people that think Michigan is one of the top 10 teams in the country, they're just not. Big C, wide receiver Aaron Matthews hit quarterback Kenny Pickett on a 3-yard fourth down touchdown pass with 56 seconds remaining, and the nation's longest regular season win streak came to an end as Pittsburgh stunned number 15. They were stunned number 15 of University of Central Florida 35-34. Remember, we were saying that we were going to measure how good UCF was compared to Penn State of the Big Ten based on the University of Pittsburgh, Dan Marino alma mater, Big C. Also, the great Tony Dorsett went there. That was a big win by Pitt, Big C. Your thoughts?
It was a huge win, stopping the nation's longest regular season win streak at 27 against Central Florida. Central Florida got down in this game behind a lot of mistakes and fought their way back into the lead, Charlton. But late in the game, Pittsburgh drove down the field. I think they made a call over to Veterans Stadium, Charlton, to the Philadelphia Eagles, because they ran the Philly special, the same play that the Philadelphia Eagles ran in the Super Bowl to beat the New England Patriots with when they threw the ball to Nick Foles for the touchdown. This is the same play that the University of Pittsburgh ran to beat Central Florida, Charlton, and knock them out of any hopes of making the playoffs or a New Year's one bowl game.
Let me get your thoughts on this, because just because you lose one game in kind of a trick play, kind of like the way Boise State beat Oklahoma back in the day, it does not mean that you're not one of the best 10 programs. When you look at a team that had a 27-game regular season streak snapped on a trick play, I know people say that drops them out of the championship contention, but there'll be teams that may go one loss or even undefeated that cannot compete with Central Florida. It's like any given Saturday, the great opportunity will be any given Sunday, is what I think, Big C. Shane Boucher he threw for 288 yards and 2 touchdowns and ran for another score as SMU held on to beat number 25 TCU 41-38, and they improved to 4-0 for the first time since 1984. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is the new Pony Express. It's called the Air Express down in SMU. When you think about that program, Sam Bussell started out at the University of Texas.
Yeah.
He was beaten out by Sam Ehlinger, and he transferred across town over to SMU.
Yeah.
And so you think about the rise of the SMU program, Charlton, this is great to see, because this is a program that was given the death penalty by the NCAA a couple decades ago. They just destroyed the athletic program, something they didn't do to Penn State when they had more egregious crimes than what SMU did.
Yep.
But I think the NCAA learned that you cannot do this to a university and young men. So when you want to give out accolades, you want to give it out to SMU. This is a program that is rising from the ashes like the Phoenix, and now they're 4-0 for the first time since 2011.
Yep.
That's great for that program down in Dallas.
No, it's great for that program in Dallas. So just to run down a couple of the teams in Big C's top college football programs, we had Clemson going to 4-0, and they had a big 52-10 win over Charlotte. Alabama, number 2, goes to 4-0. They beat Southern Miss 49-7. Number 3, Georgia, 4-0. They beat Notre Dame 23-17. Number 4, Oklahoma, and depending on what poll, they go to 3-0, and they were idle. And number 5, LSU, 4-0, and they beat Vanderbilt 66-38. And again, Ohio State, some people say number 4 in the country, others number 6, but they had a huge win, 76-5 over Miami of Ohio, number 7. Big C, if anyone loves Auburn's win, they go to 4-0. They went into Texas and beat Texas A&M 28-20 at Kyle Field, but the game really was not as close, and it makes Oregon look better because Oregon lost in the final 9 seconds. Would you buy that argument, Big C, for the Pac-12? Your thoughts?
Well, that's a tough call for Oregon. Oregon lost to Auburn.
Yep.
But also, who did Stanford lose to?
Yeah.
Stanford lost to Central Florida.
Yeah.
Central Florida just lost to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really boast well for Oregon. They stay basically neutral because when you look at those two losses, Charlton, they offset each other.
They do offset.
You got a team with the longest winning streak that throttled Stanford.
Yeah.
Stanford was not a no-show against Oregon.
Yeah.
So, Oregon is going to have 2 more signature wins to even be considered for anything.
Yeah, that's incredible. Big C, just a couple more, and we'll go to the Big C timeout. We have Florida, number 8, 4-0. and they win 34-3 over Tennessee. Number 9, Wisconsin, opened a lot of eyes, Big C, on Saturday, and they go to 3-0 with a 35-14 win over their rival Michigan Wolverines. Number 10, Notre Dame, falls to 2-1. They lost to Georgia by the score of 23-17. And I want to, before we get into the Big C timeout, you know how the Georgia game and the Notre Dame game was built up, Big C, as, you know, the best game of the weekend? And I think it was. It had two contrasting styles, one very physical and one that tried to have under Kelly this NFL type approach to offense. But what image do you come, as a guy that studies media and studies game for many, many moons, what do you come away with in seeing those top two programs? How far apart are Notre Dame and also Georgia, Big C? Your thoughts?
There's a lot of distance between the two programs because Georgia just goes out and recruits athletes. Notre Dame is getting the academics. A lot of Notre Dame's is about the hype that they receive on a national scale. To me, one of the better games in college football over the weekend was Oklahoma State at the University of Texas.
That was big.
That game had all you could ask for in a game, back and forth, Charlton, exciting, big plays, offense and defense, special teams. Everybody had every facet of that game covered. So if you look at what the national media wants to tell you that you need to watch versus games that really are exciting, even the Pittsburgh University of Central Florida game, that game had all you could ask for coming down to the last couple seconds of the game.
Yeah.
So if you buy into the hype of what the media tells you, instead of finding the best games that are being played, we can all be wooed to think something is better than what it actually is.
That's very true. And speaking of that, just a great games on Saturday. We're coming up on what's called the Big C pause. We'll come back, and we're going to go heavy on NFL, and you're going to love what we talk about in the second half. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also called the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, worldwide on the #1 podcast network in the universe, on iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker. You can follow Big C Sports on YouTube. If you have a TV set at home, and most people do, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast. You can also follow on my favorite apps as Google and Alexa. Say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the spots that we're having with our sponsors. Big C, no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. But I gotta say one thing. I know it's a pretty sad dog that won't wag his own tail. But when your neighbor steals your dog, like Will Smith stole your dog, at least say, Will, give me my dog back, okay? Don't pretend he didn't steal it. I heard one of the greatest receivers in the universe over the weekend. They were opening their show, and as I heard that good old boy say, welcome to the show, I said, wait a minute. The mothership's been stealing, Big C. I love Randy Moss, but he can say where he got it from. No one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills as they stay unbeaten, rallying back. And they beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Frank Gore is amazing, though. He scored a 1-yard touchdown run with 1:50 left, and he rallied the Bills to a 21-17 home victory. Big C, are they going to the playoffs? The Bills to the playoffs, Big C, your thoughts?
You know, Charlton, the way the Bills are playing right now, I only see one obstruction in their division, and that's the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
And they've played them tough the past several years.
Yeah.
But right now, the Buffalo Bills are doing all you can expect from a team defensively. I mean, you're always going to give credit to a quarterback when you have a victory, but you got to look at what the Bills are doing. They only allowed 17 points to the Bengals. The Bengals, you know, everybody said Marvin Lewis was the problem in Cincinnati.
No.
Now that you got Zach Taylor there and they don't have a victory, you can't say that Marvin Lewis any longer is the problem in Cincinnati along with Vontaze Burfict.
Nope.
You got to look elsewhere. Maybe Marvin Lewis was fired too soon and the media gave him too much blame.
Yeah, that's true. And give me your thought. Now, you like Randy Moss, but he can say where he got it from. Does that make any sense? Welcome to the show. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Randy's always always been a tremendous athlete, Charlton. Everybody's learning.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at plagiarism in this business that we are in, and you have a research department, you can find everything what everybody else is doing and put it on your airways, and people will think that you're the originator of it.
Yeah, very much true, Big C. I think Little Richard found that out, Big C. Dak Prescott threw 2 touchdown passes and ran for another score. As the Dallas Cowboys, they beat up on the Miami Dolphins 31-6. That game could have been much more lopsided. But Dallas, when they got up big, I think they said, we got a great offensive line. Let's run the thing, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, at some point, Jerry Jones and the media is going to have to say, this is Dak Prescott's team. This is not Ezekiel Elliott's team.
Yeah.
This team goes as Dak Prescott goes, and he has proven all the naysayers week in and week out wrong. When you look at the quarterbacks that were drafted above Dak Prescott in that year in the draft, Charlton, when you look at Carson Wentz, when you look at the kid down in Los Angeles.
Yeah, Goff.
Jared Goff. These quarterbacks were taken ahead of him in the draft.
Yep.
He is outplayed everybody, Charlton. He is 3-0 on the season. I mean, the Rams are 3-0 also, but they have struggled in Los Angeles. There has not been any struggle in Dallas, and that's because of Dak Prescott. And the last I checked, I think the Eagles are 1-2.
Yeah, the great Carson Wentz. You know, my grandparents told me, and I believed them. My parents told me too. When you're black, you got to be twice as good in a white world. They were just honest, Big C, and I think Prescott is testament to that. Aaron Rodgers threw for 235 yards and a touchdown. And you think about it. He tied a career high by running for 2 scores. The Green Bay Packers beat the Denver Broncos, which looked like they're a shell of the team that went to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, 27-16, to remain unbeaten. And I think Denver's forgotten how to sack a quarterback, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the Packers, Charlton, it is not just when you think about Aaron Rodgers. Everybody has put so much emphasis on Aaron Rodgers over the years.
Yeah.
But Aaron Jones, right now, is the key to that Green Bay Packer offense.
Yep.
He has solidified this team because he has slowed down the pass rush. He slowed down the game for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And it's been proven when you have a solid running game, the quarterback will always look good.
Yep.
And Aaron Rodgers right now has a luxury that he hasn't had in a long time. But that defense in Green Bay is playing lights out. Everybody's talked about the monsters of the Midway up in Chicago.
Yeah.
But this Green Bay defense has held everybody in check thus far this season.
No, they're really good. And speaking of holding down the fort, Jacoby Brissett threw 2 touchdown passes in the first half. Marlon Mack scored on a 4-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. And he let the Indianapolis Colts pass the Atlanta Falcons 27-24. And not too many people are feeling unlucky, Big C. Your thoughts?
Andrew who? When you talk about being lucky, Charlton, I think at this time last year the Colts might have been 0-3 if my memory, reminds me correctly.
Yeah.
But Jacoby Brissett, everybody wants to knock an African-American quarterback when it comes to the media.
Yeah.
You put Jacoby Brissett up against Matt Ryan over the weekend. Matt Ryan makes twice the money that Jacoby Brissett does.
Yep.
He has the best wide receiver in pro football, Charlton.
Yeah.
But Jacoby Brissett shows that he's a formidable quarterback, completing 75% of his passes since the start of the season for the Colts.
Yeah.
He's outdueled some of the top quarterbacks in the game, Charlton, since this season has started.
Yep.
And this was no surprise when they had their opening home game against the Atlanta Falcons, Charlton. I wonder will the media now start liking Jacoby Brissett, another African-American quarterback?
Well, the media loves a winner. And I'm sure they'll say no, not yet. He still doesn't cut his own lawn, Big C. They'll find something. Patrick Mahomes. And I said, why does Big C call him Patrick Mahomes? Maybe I should tell him that. And then I saw a commercial, and I understand now, Big C. So I was starting to, I said, maybe too much moonshine before the game, Big C. But Patrick Mahomes, or Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs, 27-37, 374 yards, 3 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens was 22 of 43, 367 yards, as Kansas City Chiefs held off Baltimore 33-28. The Chiefs are now 3-0. But I want to just throw something your way before you comment on what your thoughts are. When you look at these two men, they are the reason that the league has turned its back on getting too many African-American quarterbacks. And I'm just saying, you want guys who can play. Jimmy Johnson said he wants people who can play, just wants to win. But you don't find athletes with this kind of talent that can both throw for over 300 yards, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the Patrick Mahomes came from a daughter over a year ago, long before you saw it on television.
Okay.
She saw him and started calling him Mahomes. You know, she said, I need a man with a deeper voice than what he has. He sounds like Mahomes.
Okay.
Where Patrick Mahomes came from, and ironically, I started seeing it on a commercial a few weeks ago on television. We had been using it in our household for a long time.
Okay.
But when I look at the electrifying, you know, this is a guy who was the MVP of the NFL last year in his first year as a starter.
Yeah.
He has already eclipsed the numbers that he had in his first 3 games of his inaugural season as a starter in the NFL. These two great combatants over the weekend in Baltimore and Kansas City, Charlton, this to me was the game of the week in the NFL, and it lived up to the hype.
Yeah.
It ended up being a 5-point ball game just like it did a year ago.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson has suffered 2 regular season losses as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Ones that you can't hang your head behind because both of them have only been to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
So when you think about somebody having a nemesis and a rivalry, I think that we've gotten something now, and the NFL needs to market this over the next decade and keep these teams playing each other, Charlton, because of the electricity that they both bring to the game. You think about Mark Ingram gaining over 100 yards on the ground for the Baltimore Ravens, 2 great defenses going after each other. And you know, it was just must-see television in the NFL.
It was amazing. And it was one of those, it's like when I hear how that good old boy down south of Alabama, Paul Bear Bryant said, I got to get me some of them. He wasn't talking about Nike shoes. He was talking about African-American athletes that are about 80% of every team in the SEC now. And the NFL has known this. When you did your thing on the HBCs, the historically black colleges, and I watched a couple of games over the weekend. There's some guys who play just like these 2 quarterbacks that you don't see on TV unless you search for it, Big C. And I see why they want that image. Because if you really open up that door like the Wizard of Oz, you'll see a lot more talent like Patrick Mahomes or Mahomes and Jackson and a lot of other players. If you put the time and energy into them the way we do some of our other quarterbacks that don't have the same talent, the NFL would look like the NBA, and people don't want that, at least the owners. Minnesota Vikings have figured it out with the NFL rushing leader, Dalvin Cook, as he cruised past the 100-yard mark for the 3rd straight game. Kirk Cousins had a turnover-free afternoon as the Vikings rolled over the Oakland Raiders, and John Gruden looks like a genius, doesn't he, Big C? 34-14, beat down. Your thoughts?
You know, Dalvin Cook is the best friend of your cousin in Minnesota.
He's not
as long as he's handing the ball off to him and not trying to pass the Diggs and Thielen and Rudolph off him. The Minnesota Vikings are a tough team to beat. They have probably the best defense in the entire NFL. You're talking about a defense full of athletes, very intelligent guys that have played together for a long time. But Dalvin Cook being healthy, this is what the Minnesota Vikings missed last year. They got a quarterback that they're wasting a lot of money on, and all he has to do is hand off the football.
Yeah.
He is a game manager. He is not a franchise quarterback. He is a game manager. And as long as Zimmerman keeps him managing the game, Charlton, the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers will be fighting it out for the title.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good right now, Big C. Tom Brady threw a pair of touchdown passes for the New England Patriots. The Patriots defense did not allow a defensive touchdown for the 4th straight game as the New England Patriots dominated the Jets by the score of 30-14 and Sam Darnold. And I want to add just my own 2 cents. And I'm not pro anybody. I just say Google it because some people don't. But we mentioned this about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. It's about the ownership of the Patriots and Kraft and Antonio Brown. I'm not saying what person did something any more nefarious than the other. But when people say that Antonio Brown is wrong for naming what Bob Kraft did, and guys like Big Ben Roethlisberger, he wasn't throwing them under the bus. He was saying things that you can Google. You can Google it, Big C. They all have unclean hands. Big C, your thoughts on the game?
Well, the game, Charlton, was what the game was when you think about the Patriots. They do what they do. They're just a dominant organization.
Yep.
This is what team play is all about, what they do. There's nobody thinking that they're bigger than anybody else on the team. This is a team built with a locker room of players, Charlton, that enjoy the game of football. This is a team with a head coach who talks about the game of football.
Yep.
He's not interested in all the fiduciary things that go on, nor the rest of the organization. This is why they win, because they're focused about their business.
Yeah.
They're all employed to play football, not to be social media advocates, not to stand up for something that they're not involved in.
Yeah.
They focus on the job at hand, and that's what makes them a great team and organization.
Yeah, a lot like Al Davis. Al Davis had a lot of guys that had unclean hands, and not just because of Stickum, Big C, okay? A lot of unclean hands, but they just kept winning. Matthew Stafford, your friend, threw a touchdown pass to Marvin Jones. Now, Jamal Agnew returned a kickoff 100 yards for a score, and the Detroit Lions held on to a 27-24 victory over the Philadelphia Eagles, which at one point in time, if you listen to mainstream, this was America's prodigal team because they kept pumping Carson Wentz. And I noticed every time a player drops the ball, they say, well, Carson would have better numbers if people didn't drop the ball. Well, maybe if he wasn't hanging people out to dry, they wouldn't be so gun-shy. Dixie, your thoughts?
You know, when you think about the Philadelphia Eagles, Charlton, over the last 2 years, the most significant wins they had came with Nick Foles at quarterback.
That's right.
Nick Foles is no longer the quarterback there in Philadelphia, so everything hinges on Carson Wentz now.
Yeah.
And because it all hinges on Carson Wentz, the media's starting to attack the rest of the team.
Yep.
They're not attacking Carson Wentz. When I look at two of the quarterbacks you've talked about in the last couple of segments,
yeah,
you talked about Matthew Ryan in Atlanta.
Yeah.
You know, the Falcons are 1-2. Now you talk about Carson Wentz in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They're 1-2.
Yeah.
Both of these guys were the second quarterbacks taken in the draft, Charlton, in the years that they were drafted.
Yeah.
They're both $100+ million guaranteed quarterbacks, Charlton, but they cannot will their teams to win. And so everyone started talking about the talent around them is failing the quarterbacks. There was a play in the game, Charlton, where all the offensive linemen were sitting there and looking at Carson Wentz as he was running around. They weren't even trying to block.
Yeah.
As the Detroit Lions linemen were going after him. You can go back and replay the game, and you'll see this segment where all the offensive linemen are standing there, and all the defensive linemen are going after Carson Wentz. You know, it reminds me of a time back with the San Diego Chargers when Ryan Leaf was playing quarterback for the San Diego Chargers, and he was so cocky and arrogant, is that the offensive linemen stopped blocking in San Diego for Ryan Leaf.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's the same scenario that's occurring right now in Philadelphia with Carson Wentz.
Well, you heard it first on Big C Sports. And does Jerry Jones see the difference in performance between Wentz, who got his money, and Goff, who got his money, and the guy that is in his organization, Big C? Maybe he should listen to Big C Sports more often. Carolina, you have a quarterback, Kyle Allen, threw for 264 yards, 4 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey ran for a 76-yard touchdown. And the Carolina Panthers beat up the Arizona Cardinals 38-20. I told you that I think Cam Newton has something going on emotionally because he's more interested in what he looks like in his clothing than he does on the field in his uniform. That's just my own opinion. But I think Carolina, if they're interested in winning, they got to sit him on the bench for a couple of weeks so he can realize what's really more important, how you dress or how you play. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, Cam Newton is 0-8 in his last 8 starts, Charlton, which is troubling when you think about an NFL quarterback, a caliber quarterback, number 1 draft pick overall. He was just an MVP 3 short seasons ago in the NFL. So how far he's fallen from grace when you look at it. Although injuries are a big part of that, Kyle Allen had an excellent game for the Carolina Panthers. Everybody kept saying that Cam had no weapons and no tools around him. I think a lot of Cam's problems is Cam mentally. Is that Cam is more focused on everything other than dealing with the game of football. If he had to put as much concentration into the game of football as he does into which outfit he's going to wear to the podium, we'll see a lot more productive Cam Newton on the football field. But big win for the Carolina Panthers organization, puts them right back in the thick of their division hunt. Allen's going to be the starter again next week, and we'll see how far he can take this program.
Yeah, the late Al Davis would tell Cam Newton, you can always get a job modeling clothes on Madison Avenue, or you can play Pro Bowl caliber football, but you got to choose. At Tampa Bay, Jameis Winston, 23 of 37, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. But the real story was Daniel Jones. He got his first start as the New York Giants quarterback, and he rallied the Giants to a 32-31 victory over Tampa. And Jones went 23 of 36, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns, and ran in for the game-winning touchdown. I was impressed with the way he played, but had the kicker what did Peyton Manning say? He just has to kick the dang ball, Big C. Had the kicker kick the dang ball, we'd be talking about Daniel Jones losing his first start. Big C, your thoughts?
Yeah, Gay missed the chip shot at time expired in the game in Tampa.
Yeah, what?
But
right?
you have to give high praise and accolades to Daniel Jones in throwing the 2 touchdown passes. Charlton, even the 2 touchdown runs that he had, that's something that you were not going to get out of Eli Manning.
Yeah.
The one that he went around the end, Charlton, and went into the corner of the end zone on about a 20-yard scramble for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And then the game winner, Charlton, it wasn't a quarterback draw, but he dropped back, saw that the middle was open, and he escaped through the middle of the defense, Charlton, on an 18-yard touchdown run.
Yeah.
That's pure athleticism from a young quarterback. Yes, things will get tougher as it goes on. They lost Saquon Barkley for at least a month out of the backfield, so now they have to regroup offensively. But Daniel Jones showed a lot of spark and promise in his game.
Yeah.
I look at Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, I got to put him in the same boat that I put Cam Newton in, Charlton.
Yeah.
This is a guy who did not do enough for his team to win. You know, he lit up the show in the first half of that game.
Yeah.
He came out in the second half and did abysmal performance. Once again, turning the ball over, giving up an opportunity for his team to score, making it into a turnover, causing his team to lose, Charlton.
Well, they can always find a job selling insurance, or they can start focusing more on the playbook, Big C. Deshaun Watson threw for 351 yards and hit Jordan Atkins with 2 of his 3 touchdown passes. J.J. Watt got his hands dirty, Big C. He had 2 sacks for the Texans. He had 5 sacks total of Phillip Rivers. And the Houston Texans throttled the L.A. Chargers by the score of 27-20. And I'm telling you, there's something about Deshaun Watson. When you watch this guy play, and it doesn't matter what color somebody is. Steve Young played a lot like these African-American players. But it's like everyone that's putting up big numbers, they were maligned so much by media, not by their play, but just like he's not the guy we're used to looking at, Big C. What a great game. Your thoughts?
Well, when I look at Deshaun Watson, it was like watching Patrick Mahomes and Jackson in the KC Baltimore game, Charlton. I'm watching 3 different magicians at work. The athleticism that they display in extending plays, just like Jacoby Brissett also in Indianapolis, Charlton. They give their teams a chance to make a play. That's what these young African-American quarterbacks have created. What they will say about a white quarterback, even Carson Wentz, they say, well, he has mobility where he can move around in the pocket. A black athlete, they call him athletic, a black quarterback. But what they do is that they give their offensive players an opportunity. They also bail out their offensive lines in many times. And we saw those great accolades from those 4 magicians that you've talked about thus far. In Brissett, even Prescott does the same thing for Dallas. But when we saw Mahomes move around and Jackson move around, and even Deshaun Watson escaping what would have been a sack against a white quarterback, turning it into a long touchdown pass, Charlton. This is how the NFL game is evolving.
Yeah, it's evolving. If we could just get the mindset of owners to say, we just want to win, it doesn't matter what color somebody is, I think they would understand. In San Francisco, Jimmy Garoppolo threw a 5-yard touchdown pass to Dante Pettis with 1:15 remaining, and the 49ers overcame 5 turnovers and beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 24-20 Sunday. It was their first 3-0 start in 21 years. But I want to make sure that people understand out here on the West Coast is the 49er defense. You got to think about it, Big C. Their defense continues to give them chances to win, Big C. I know they're going to give Jimmy G the credit, but it's the defense that won that game for them. Your thoughts?
Well, you spoke about it right off the back. They overcame 5 turnovers. To overcome 5 turnovers, that means that your defense has to be a stalwart against your opponent's offense. And that's what the 49ers defense has become. They've become a stalwart on the West Coast. They're playing tremendous defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers, you can all but say that this season is over for them. And the team that's most happy about that, Charlton, will be the Miami Dolphins. Because if they keep playing like they have, the Miami Dolphins will have 2 picks in the top 5 because they have the Steelers' top pick also in the draft. But
funny.
The 49ers, you got to feel proud for the organization. They've struggled for the last decade. They seem to have gotten their guy, Charlton, since their last run to the Super Bowl. To get them to the next level once again, they have to contend with the Rams and the Seahawks there in the West. But the 49ers being 3-0 for the first time in 21 years, will they get a sellout their next home game?
Yeah, they may do that, Big C. No Breeze, no problem. Teddy Bridgewater threw 2 touchdown passes. His first start in almost 5 years as the New Orleans Saints, the Hootats, came up north. And do Saints like fish? I guess so. They scored 2 touchdowns on defensive special teams to beat the Seahawks 33-27. That was a special teams win. but those quarterbacks did not hurt themselves either bit. But give it up to special teams, Big C. They're the least respected crew on the field. Your thoughts?
Well, everybody wants to sing Sean McVay's praise down in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You might want to think about that other Sean Payton down there in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who's played a quarterback for the first time since Drew Brees came into New Orleans, over a decade ago.
That's right, yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater, this is the first quarterback to throw a touchdown in New Orleans since Aaron Brooks between Drew Brees.
Yeah.
So Sean Payton makes adjustments with the personnel that he has. This shows the genius that he is as a head coach in the NFL.
Yeah.
And that New Orleans defense is rising to the occasion. You got a total team effort up in Seattle in the rain, Charlton. This is a dome team going outdoors in the rain and throttling the Seattle Seahawks that were undefeated.
Yeah, that's true, Big C. Cleveland! The Cleveland Browns, they are who we thought they were. They're now 1-2 after losing to the Rams 2013 at home. That was an amazing environment. The dog pound was rocking, Big C. It's an offense that Cleveland does not have an identity yet, and there's a lot of hype, but that crowd noise was amazing. And the Rams, they went on the road, and they won in a really difficult environment, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, Cleveland, this is a team in a month that could be 1-6.
Yeah.
Not living up to all the hype that the media gave. I said this team would not be above a 500 team at the start of the season, and I stick to that.
Yeah.
The reason why this will not be a 500 team in Cleveland, because they have a great running back in Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
But you have an egotistical quarterback in Baker Mayfield who does not want to make somebody else the star of the offense. He wants to utilize those receivers on the outside. He is not a quarterback, Charlton, that can hold the ball and read a defense. He is a quick-throwing quarterback, and if it's not there quickly, he's going to be in trouble offensively.
Yep.
But Nick Chubb, if you give Nick the ball, he is a tremendous runner. He is a very underrated running back. And we talked earlier about Mark Ingram. If you have a running back to control the ball as well as Ezekiel Elliott, you can win ball games.
Yep.
If you look at Nick Chubb's productivity last season as a rookie and even this year in his second year in the NFL, when he gets the ball in his hands, Cleveland is a productive offense. When Baker Mayfield feels that he has to throw the ball overzealously, Charlton, this is a team that struggles. He listens to the media loves him. If they put as much emphasis on Nick Chubb, the Cleveland Browns could win some ball games.
And don't go a draw play on 4th and 9. Big C, as a defensive guy, 4th and 9, you run a draw? What's up with that thought? Your thoughts?
Well, that's just one of many mistakes that are made in the game. If the play hits, it's a success, and no one says that the coach is a buffoon, Jonathan. It's all about the success of any play at any time in the game. Everybody, preponderance in the media, is always going to criticize something when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But when it works, all of a sudden something is a genius. Daniel Jones, when he ran a quarterback draw to win the game for Tampa, he was a genius.
Yeah.
See how different the ties are when the play is successful versus the play not being successful?
Makes a lot of sense. But still, don't run a draw on 4th and 9. Run a draw on 3rd and 5 or something. Big C, as we close out tonight, Major League Baseball schedule, we have Philadelphia at Washington, Baltimore at Toronto, Boston at Tampa Bay, Miami at New York, St. Louis at Arizona. It's a very short schedule for Major League Baseball. We'll be getting right into the playoffs coming up in just a couple of weeks, Big C, and we'll be looking forward to that as we get close to that playoff chase. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports Monday through Friday. In fact, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, worldwide on the #1 podcast network in the universe, and iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker. You can follow Big C Sports on YouTube. If you have a TV set in your home, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television. And the apps that I really love are Google and Alexa. I know you've heard of them. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear Welcome to the Show. You'll hear me introduce Big C as the Mystic, and we'll do our thing, and I really appreciate our sponsors for their support. Big C, 2019 Major League Baseball playoff tracker, who has already clinched a postseason spot, and who could be next. You have the LA Dodgers, they're in. Atlanta Braves are in. Houston Astros are in. The New York Yankees, they're in. St. Louis, who could be next, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you're looking out there and you got the Minnesota Twins the Milwaukee Brewers, the Washington Nationals, and the Oakland A's. I think the Oakland A's are a shoe-in, Charlton. They have a 3.5-game lead in the wild card chase in the AL,
yep.
and they only have 6 games left to go in the season. I think we'll see the A's making the playoffs. Something great for the city of Oakland.
Yeah, it'd be great for the city of Oakland. As we close out tonight at Big C Sports, I know we want to get into Monday Night Football. I know they have to feel like it used to be a game where you felt special because you're playing on Monday night, but I think it's more exciting on the weekends watching mini games as opposed to one. But we do have Chicago at Washington, and both teams need to get off to a win tonight. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they really do. You know, you got the Chicago Bears led by Mitch Trubisky. You got to think about the 2 quarterbacks that were drafted behind Mitch Trubisky in the draft just a couple of short years ago. Patrick Mahomes was taken at 10. Deshaun Watson was taken at 12. We've seen what Mahomes has become, the NFL MVP already. Deshaun Watson is developing. Mitch Trubisky had a miraculous year last year, taking the Bears to 12 wins on the season. But here it is, 2019, Charlton. He has not thrown one touchdown pass going into this Monday night game tonight. The Bears' offense is struggling because of this young quarterback. He has to find a way to find lightning in the bottle. We look at Washington on the other side. How long will it be if Case Keenum can't get the job done before we see the Dwayne Haskins era begin in D.C.? If he struggles tonight, I think we might see Dwayne Haskins. The Skins have a pretty good, decent defense, but they have to find a way to kickstart their offense. They lost Darius Geis week 1, their top running back. When we look at Chicago, they're still trying to find that identity just like Cleveland on offense, and they need to find a spark. We know what they have on defense, but that defense still hasn't stopped anybody from scoring yet this year.
It's all fair and love and war. I want to say to everyone in the universe, happy first day of autumn. Happy fall. A lot of good things happening in Big C Sports. We're going to bring you more playoff coverage as well as more football coverage for Big C Friday Night Lights as well as college football, historical black college information as well as the Sunday kicks off with NFL all around the universe. Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I think it's a wake-up call for college football when you look at the top poll and the top 10 and you look at the SEC. I believe they have 5 teams ranked in the top 10 in the national polls in college football. So when we want to talk about dominance in college football, you got to come down south and have a glass of moonshine.
Well, and also, if you go south like Cal and San Jose State, bring your own Gatorade, Big C. You can bring your Gatorade too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.